Welcome to One on One with the Grim One. I am your host, the Slayer of Posers with the most, the Necrosexual. And joining me on this morbid talk by way of Medellin, Colombia, we have Witchtrap. We talking about Witchtrap. How the hell are you, Mr. Axe Ripper?
Hey, I'm doing very good. How are you?
I feel grim.
Yeah.
And ready to rock and roll. I see you and I both have one hell of a guitar collection behind us.
Yeah.
Your guitars are a little bit more impressive than mine, but you know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with the most electrifying man in corpse entertainment. And of course, Witchtrap, some of Colombia's nastiest and one of the oldest thrash and speed metal institutions, going as far back as the early 90s. But 2020 yielded an excellent album from the Witchtrap boys known as Evil Strikes Again, and it's one of the Necrosexual's favorite records of 2020 so far. So on behalf of this side of hell, to you Witchtrap boys, I just want to say bravo, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you like it.
Yes, it's totally brutal, and like you say on the album, you're dealing with Satan.
Yeah, totally.
So this is one-on-one with the Grim One, and that means each week my guest selects one album that holds a special place in their dark hearts to discuss with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about the album you've selected for this talk.
Okay, I decided to have this one. This is the Virgin Killer from Scorpions. You know, it's very special to me. I think it's the culprit of the era of Scorpions with Uli John Roth, you know, one of the greatest guitar players in the rock history, and he has excellent songs like Yellow Raven, for example, Picture Lives. It's very special to me.
Indeed, and you can look at that album cover that you have on vinyl that you so graciously displayed, but look at those boys. I mean, they look like Virgin Killers. I'm getting moist just looking at them.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was your first encounter with that album by the Scorpions? When was the first time you heard it?
You know, my story with Scorpions, you know, in the early 80s and in the 90s, I discovered Scorpions, but mainly the most part of my story with Scorpions in those years were with the Matthias Jabs era, you know, like Blackout, Love at First Sting, and all that stuff. It was great, but later on I started to know, you know, the first song I heard from John Roth with them was The Cells of Sharon. You know, it is on the Taken by Force. You know, it was great. And I started to be interested in the Scorpions, in the 70s Scorpions era. I don't remember very well, you know, my first encounter with this album, but I can tell, you know, I had a pet, I had a dog some years before, and it's very special to me because when that dog died, you know, I needed that spirituality, that spirituality that you can find here, you know, because it is very melodic, very spiritual. The way Uli John Roth plays, you know, really connects you with something that happens in the world. You know, the world is not just physical; it is more than that. And this album, you know, really connects you with what happens when you lost a thing that you love pretty much. You know, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, you know, but this is those kind of things that I find in this album that is really enjoyable.
Indeed, it is. It's an album that has the spirituality, and it also has all of that machismo. Mucho gusto, you could say, right off the top. first song, Virgin Killers, it's good party metal, makes you want to raise all sorts of hell. But then
Yeah.
they can also write some good melodic ballads too, like Yellow Raven.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's some people could say that maybe people like me that play in a thrash metal band, I will be maybe picking another album, maybe an album like Endless Pain or Pleasure to Kill or
Yeah,
Hell Awaits to
exactly.
Slay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people maybe don't expect to me that I pick an album like in Virgin Killer or maybe an album from Rainbow or something like that. But I'm a very hard rock and heavy metal fan, so that was the reason why, you know, I still like it, or you know, some thrash metal, some death metal, even a bit of black metal, you know. But I'm more like an hard rock and heavy metal kind of metalhead.
A hard loving man, as Deep Purple would say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you said it.
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
funny because your style of thrash metal, it certainly reminded me of Creator in all the best ways. They're a favorite band of mine. And
yeah,
it certainly has that speed element that you can hear, and I can certainly hear in Witchtrap. But it's always great to talk about the classics that the bands, the thrash bands, grew up on, like the Scorpions.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Totally grim. So tell me, where did the speed influence come from?
You know, we were. I the first records that I heard back in the '80s, it was like I can name a few of them. You know, the Show No Mercy, Morbid Tales, Kill 'Em All.
Ride the Lightning,
Obviously,
because I see that in your
right?
background.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, Venom, Bathory, all that stuff. You know, it was. They are some of the first albums that I heard that I loved from the very beginning. So there are a lot, man. Then after that, I discovered the bands like Warren from Germany, uh, Running Wild, uh, and they were at the same time with the heavy metal bands, you know, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and all that stuff. So, but to me, I think the most special vinyls that I heard from that from those years were Show No Mercy, Kill 'Em All, Black Metal, Infernal Overkill, Endless Pain. Um, and it was hard, you know, in Colombia back in those days, you know, you didn't find many stores where with vinyls for sale. Instead of that, it was more like tape recording, you know. You had somebody in the neighborhood that maybe had the vinyl, so you went there and you recorded the tape and you listened it to the tape, you know, days and days and so on. After that, you know, vinyls and CDs were more affordable. So yeah, you start to be. It was different, you know. But first vinyls, those first bands from that beginning with the relationship with metal were very special because that wasn't easy at all.
Indeed, it's funny to think that within our lifetime, 3 or 4 decades ago, this music was still new, was still being
Yeah,
invented. So certainly the forefathers, Venom, Slayer, Metallica, Celtic Frost, and all the dudes in Germany are an
yeah,
excellent place to start and
yeah.
discover where it was being forged. So take us back in time. You're talking about the early 90s, and your band Witchtrap is one of the oldest thrash metal bands from Colombia going back to the early 90s. How did Witchtrap come to be? Paint me a picture of what it was like back
Okay, in the early '90s, you know, everybody was playing death metal. I mean, most of the bands were death metal. So everybody was listening to bands like Entombed, like Morbid Angel, Napalm Death, Obituary, and so on, right? And it was cool. And we started a band. You know, that band was named Dark Millennium. We were playing something like a bit of Death, a bit of Sepultura, a bit of you know, some death metal, regular death metal. But at some point, death metal became so predictable. I think, I don't know how to call that, but we started to feel that we were just copying things, and everybody was just copying things, and I was getting tired of that. So I talked to my brother, and I had a riff, my guitar. I created a riff, and it was more like destruction. You know, destruction has been a very influence to me. So I told him, hey, I got this riff. I want you just to play like very basic tupa tupa tupa, and just just come with me. Let's play this, and tell me if you like it or what do you feel when we were playing this. So after that, he was kind of excited with that experiment, and after that, I told him, you know what? I don't want to keep playing that metal more. Um, we will. I would like to just to change that and start playing those bands that we heard from the very beginning when we started listening to metal. Right? It was just like I told you before. You know, just pure endless pain, infernal overkill, hell awaits, and that's the very beginning of the band. It was I don't really have a year or a date, but I think it was in 1993, more or less, or so. And I think that was the very beginning of the band. The name of the band really came when we saw a movie, a horror movie that is called Witchtrap, and we saw the movie. I don't really remember very well what happens in that movie, but the logo of the movie was awesome, and I told my brother, hey, you know what? I like this name for the band, and that's how it started. Yeah.
And the rest is heavy metal history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you mentioned the tupa tupa tupa. I like that. I think it's like a regional thing because up in the States, when I try to describe a thrash beat to my friends, we call it oompa oompa oompa. But
Yeah.
I think I like tupa 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 a little bit better. It just sounds more accurate. And likewise, we played some shows with some dudes from Bolivia, Azotador, and those dudes love to thrash, and they have a word for a very specific type of beat in thrash metal, like Inner Self from Sepultura with the pa 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 pa. They call it Algriche.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's always enlightening to talk to people from different parts of the world to gain a little bit of their regional flavors of the heavy metal music that we all love, right?
Yeah, yeah. Everybody perceives metal in a bit of a different way, you know. That's how we call it here, just tupa tupa, and everybody calls that like that here.
Yeah, I like that. So you
Yeah,
talked
so
about starting a band with your brother, who I see in the background over there, the gruesome
yeah.
twosome, the dynamic duo. So how was it, Howard, tell me, how has it been like making music with your own family after all these years?
I think it's a bit easier in certain ways. You know, when you're playing with other people, you know, maybe people change, or people maybe, yeah, they maybe get married, or they have children, or you know, many things happen in people's lives. So because of that, many bands just they split because, you know, many things happen. So people just calling it quits, and they go, and you know, it can happen many things to the bands. So playing with my brother, as we have uh, like similar tastes about music, or you know, not just we don't think the same about everything, but we have a similar way of thinking about things. And I live with him. I live with my brother in the same house, and we have like the same dreams. You know, just to keep playing metal for the rest of our lives. I think, I don't know. So it's been easy in many aspects. Another thing that I could say is maybe that we don't argue a lot. I've seen with people, maybe, I don't know, you can see, for example, bands like, um, I don't know if it's a good idea to say names about bands, but you see bands like, I don't know,
I don't know,
maybe,
Sepultura, maybe?
I don't know, maybe Venom. I could say Venom.
Yeah.
You know that those guys are just fighting each other in the recent years, and you know, if they were brothers or something, then maybe it would be different. Or in the just in the contrary, on the contrary side, you say, for example, Raven. You know, they're brothers, and They've been playing for years.
Yes, I was
Maybe
just talking to Johnny Zazula about Raven the other day. He saying his high regards to them. So yes, it's a classic metal band, bounded by brothers.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's been cool. You know, we like brothers. We understand each other very well. We have a very good communication. We have the same influences for creating music. So, I mean, we do not agree all the time about everything. You know, we're not just perfect, just like perfect, you know, brothers in terms of I mean, sometimes we have some arguing about things, you know, but most of the time we're just the perfect kind of friends that you can find out there.
Indeed. And which one of you is the older brother?
Hugo is the older one.
Ah, Hugo. So which one got into metal first? Or did you guys both get each other into different bands over the years? What was that like? I'm an only child, so this is interesting to me.
You know, actually, I can say that maybe I got interested in heavy metal a bit first, but we started just at the same time. He had some friends, and I had another friends, you know, that were interested in rock and heavy metal. And suddenly we were at home and we started to talk about rock. Uh, you know, for example, the first album I ever heard of heavy metal was The Number of the Beast, and I think his first album was maybe Ride the Lightning or Kill 'Em All. I'm not sure, and we started to talk about that maybe at the same time. So we started out, I think, yeah, at the same time, man.
Yes, bonded by blood right from the start, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys got your hands full. You're dealing with Satan.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, baby. 24/7.
Yeah, 24/7, man.
Definitely not a phase you're going through. And I have to say that I was lucky enough to witness Witchtrap in the flesh in Philadelphia in around 2015 at the Mill Creek Tavern in Philadelphia, which is now condos or apartment buildings, I think. And my buddy Keith Cruelty was the showrunner of that one. And that was so much fun. I was in the front row. I kept trying to start a Witchtrap chant, and nobody else would chant with me. So if you remember that show, and if you think back and there was somebody who sounded like he drank too much boxed wine and kept saying Witchtrap, Witchtrap, that was me. So that was great to witness you guys.
Yeah. No, it was an awesome show. I remember that. Yeah, I remember pretty well because, you know, I was playing my Flying V for the first time.
The White Flying V. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I bought it there in New York, and I was having a bit of problems with the intonation. I had some issues with the intonation with that guitar, and I've heard after buying it, you know, that Gibson's always had a lot of problems with intonation, right? So I remember that I had a bit of a bad time with that guitar in the whole tour. It was a shame, you know, but hopefully most of the shows were awesome.
Yeah, and it looked cool. I see it. I think I see it behind you on your wall, that White Flying V.
Yeah, it's right there.
If you buy a Gibson, you're getting it for the looks and for the name. For the performance,
Yeah. I didn't know about those problems with the performance. Yeah, I'm a huge Michael Schenker fan, so that's one of the reasons I bought it. But yeah,
So tell me, we're going to talk about Evil Strikes Again,
okay,
new
okay.
album by Witchtrap. What was that creative process like? Because I'll tell you what the end product was like: a hellacious, non-stop party rock, thrash metal, assault on the senses. So what was it like recording that album?
Uh, it was 2018, and we didn't have too many songs for the record, so we started out just writing new songs, and I wanted the album to be a bit more straight to the point kind of thing. In the previous albums, we were more like, it was a bit more complicated in terms of of the composition. But in this new one, I wanted things to be more straight to the point. So I remember maybe just talking that to my brother. Hey, I would like things to be like that. Uh, in the meantime, it was a bit hard for me. In 2018 and 2019 were a bit of a hard couple of years to me because I had some health issues, and I wasn't really willing to do things at you know uh, for the whole part of my creative effort. I don't know how to describe that, but I wasn't at full potency, right? So those years were kind of hard for me, but I put those feelings apart and started to work on the album. We have a studio here at home, home studio. We have some gear, a couple of amplifiers, Mesa Boogie One, PV One, and a pretty good drum kit. And once those songs were ready to be recorded, it started out. We recorded the songs and we started to mix the whole package. And I've been learning a lot on YouTube and other places in the internet about production. And I think that helped me a lot. But we don't want to be a band that makes perfect records in terms of sound or in terms of perfection. We don't want that. We want to make a decent sound record, but we also like a bit of noise, a bit of imperfection, a bit of wild feeling, and I think we capture all that. Um, my voice wasn't very good in those recordings, and I noticed that. So I had to really put a great effort just to capture the energy and everything that I wanted. And according to the lyrics, I wanted to have a more kind of these are dark lyrics too, as we have always been making, but I want them to be a bit more in like in a poetry kind of things, and I think it they they were very good. So we were very lucky. I'm very glad with the whole result and how things turn out and everything.
Indeed, you certainly achieved that special mix of madness and poison on your new record.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally brutal. And of course, you want to talk about bands like Destruction or Creator. You listen to those albums or any of those albums from the 80s. This was back before we had computers that were making music and people couldn't just punch it in on Pro Tools to fix their mistakes. So it's people playing the music, and you can tell that. And I think that that is perfect for what you said. You want that imperfection. You want that human element. Be a little bit rough around the edges.
Yeah, exactly. You know, modern productions are very good in those terms, but when we're playing metal, it just doesn't make much sense, it goes to a point when you really start to feel like, I don't know, you're in my position, I heard, for example, the last Creator album, for example, it was kind of good, but it was way too perfect. And to me, I got a bit tired of that. And most of the bands nowadays, they're sounding the same. You have different names, different songs, and everything. But the sound is, you feel like, hey, everybody's sounding like the same.
Yeah, where have I heard this from before? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and in the 80s, that didn't happen. You heard, for example, Ride the Lightning, for example, and then you heard, I don't know, Persecution Mania. Was completely different aspects, different albums, different sounds, and different productions, and that was awesome, awesome.
Indeed, you listen to the 80s, sort of the golden era of thrash metal, and you had all these different bands from all over the world, and each band was trying to play faster and crazier and more evil than the other band, and each one did it, and they all sounded different. And
Yeah,
you don't really hear that very often these days. Especially, it's funny, you were talking about in the early 90s when you guys were starting and how death metal was getting so predictable. And I feel like that's kind of happening again now because there are so many death metal bands out there, but a lot of them just sound like the same couple of bands from 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. In the 90s, it was predictable, but still, they were pretty different. For example, Altars of Madness, it has nothing to do with, for example, Left Hand Path, completely different. But it was to me, it was in some ways, a bit predictable. But now, now everything is just the same, man. And I think it's way too far in that sense, in that direction. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I like, to have a decent kind of sound. Everything sounds good, strong, with clarity and all that. But hey, we need some power, some real thing happening in those speakers, so you can really fall in love with what you're hearing.
Yeah, this is rock and roll, baby. We got to keep it real.
Yeah.
So on that note, are there any newer bands that you're really excited about these days?
Mostly I've been hearing a lot of Colombian music these days. We have pretty bands here. I can name a few. Maybe we have a band here called Savage Aggression, for example. They're playing thrash. We have another band playing death metal that is called Death Cult. It's a very good band. Another one is Casket Grinder. There are many of them. And bands maybe from the outside of Colombia, I could name maybe Midnight, I think, or there are many bands. I need to confess myself, I listen most of the times, bands from the 80s or the 70s. But, every now and then you find a band that you say, oh, these guys really, really, really have talent and they really are killing it. So, yeah, that's it.
Indeed. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm in the same boat. I'm somebody whose tastes are pretty classical, going back usually 30, 40 years old. But I also realize there's a ton of sick shit being turned out in the underground. So I've been trying to keep my head abreast of the new shit that's going on. And I think that there's an excellent resurgence of speed metal, of hard rock, of heavy metal happening, as well as some thrash metal and some death metal too. But I
Yeah,
didn't want to just sound like some boomer that's like, oh, the only good stuff is 30 years old. Because guess what? There's still new shit that's being churned out. You just got to know where to find it.
exactly. Yeah, and the thing is, you have millions of bands. I don't know if there are millions, but there are a bunch. And most of them, they're kind of good, but every now and then, as I told you, you hear a band that you say, oh, fuck, these guys are fucking killing it. And, oh, this band is going to, if they just continue, what they are doing, they're going to be known and maybe, have amazing records in the future.
And you gentlemen are from Medellin, Colombia. So tell me, what's the metal scene like in that part of the world?
In Colombia in general, I can say that people are very passionate. People here, they go to the concerts and they are very wild. And when in the shows, people really support bands. But in the different, in each city, you find difference. I don't know if you understand. For example, we have Bogota. In Bogota, people behave in a different way than in Medellin. For example, in Bogota, you can find that people like a lot all the mosh pit kind of thing. Whereas in Medellin, you find that people doesn't do that kind of thing. They just bang their head like fucking crazy. And both cities are pretty good. You can find that. For example, there are other cities, like Cali, Bogota, Medellin, Pasto. You find that people are very radical. They like just real, true heavy metal. They don't like bands like, for example, I don't want to be disrespectful with other genres, but for example, here in Colombia, you don't find people that like, for example, Marilyn Manson or Korn or things like that.
Nice. No new metal, huh? Not a lot of Slipknot fans.
No. Maybe there are a few, but most of the people really like is like extreme metal or old school thrash metal, old school heavy metal, old school death metal. This is the trend here, and it's great. To me, it's fucking great. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like my kind of freaks.
Yeah.
So tell me, Witchtrap brothers, what do you want to say to all the heavy metal hellraisers we're watching right now?
We have a lot to say, but most of that is just to say thank you. And I want you to be supportive to all the underground scene of metal that is trying to be alive in those weird days. Nobody of us were expecting this pandemic to happen. And a band like us, for example, we haven't had any concerts from maybe a year ago or something, and we're trying to survive. And so if you can, I don't know, maybe buy some stuff, some merch from the bands you like, just do it, because bands need support these days. If we're after all this happened, and concerts and shows and gigs, when all this start again, I wanted to see you in every gig, in every show, just to share a couple of beers and to bang our heads and to have fun with what we like, that is metal. So, and I want you to thank you. I'm very grateful to you for having us here to see this interview, and just to be supported with Witchtrap and all the metal in general.
Well said. Bang your fucking head, buy some merch, support your favorite hellraisers, wherever they are and whoever they are. Thank you, Witchtrap brothers, for going one-on-one with the Grim One. I hope you guys stay decent and stay heavy, baby.
Yeah, that's it.